The galaxy was vast, stretching far beyond the reach of even the most advanced starships. Many civilizations had come and gone, each leaving their mark on the stars. Yet none had ever expected humanity, still a young species, to rise to such prominence. On the planet of Coulter, a world known for its towering spires and advanced technologies, a meeting of the galaxy's most powerful leaders was taking place. The leaders gathered in a grand hall, their minds focused on a single subject. A human had arrived. This was no ordinary human. He was a soldier, but rumors had begun to spread that he was something far greater, something more than anyone could comprehend. The alien queen, Leora, sat at the head of the table, her sharp, icy gaze fixed on the holographic map before her. The human's arrival had caused a stir among the galaxy's elite, yet she remained calm. She was known for her unshakable resolve, and she didn't buy into the myths surrounding this human. She had seen many warriors come and go, and none had ever truly impressed her. "Who is this human?" one of the leaders asked, breaking the silence. "His name is Alaric," another leader replied, his voice tinged with disbelief. "He is said to be the last of the ancient human warriors, the descendants of the first humans who once shaped the course of galactic history." Leora raised an eyebrow. "A legend, then?" The room fell silent. The idea of a human soldier who could stand on the same level as the galaxy's greatest leaders was almost laughable. Yet the rumors persisted. Alaric had done things that no one had thought possible. He had survived battles that left entire fleets in ruins, and his name had become a symbol of resilience and determination. "We cannot underestimate him," said one of Leora's advisors. "There are whispers that he's been chosen for a mission that even our finest warriors have failed." Leora's eyes narrowed. She had no time for myths, and she had no intention of letting a human, no matter how legendary, shake the foundations of the galaxy's power structure. Alaric's transport ship had just arrived, its sleek silver hull cutting through the atmosphere of Coulter. Leora stood and walked toward the window, her gaze locked on the ship descending from the sky. She could feel the weight of the moment, the strange tension building in her chest. It was as though the arrival of this human marked the beginning of something different. Her council had spoken of the human's legendary feats, but in Leora's mind, actions spoke louder than words. She would meet this human, see him face to face, and decide for herself whether he was truly worthy of the legends whispered about him. The doors to the hall opened, and Alaric stepped in. His presence was commanding. His dark eyes scanned the room with a calm, almost eerie intensity. He didn't seem like a myth. He seemed real. And that, Leora realized, was perhaps the most unsettling thing of all. "Welcome," Leora said, her voice steady, though her mind raced. "I hear you're more than just a soldier." Alaric's lips curled into a faint smile. "I suppose that depends on what you believe." And so, the meeting began. The future of the galaxy would now hinge on the actions of this human who had somehow become a legend. Alaric stood in front of the queen, his posture strong and unyielding, his eyes meeting hers with a calmness that seemed to unsettle the entire room. The alien queen, Leora, had seen many powerful beings in her lifetime, but this human was different. There was something about him, something that felt legendary. Yet, she had to remain cautious. Legends were often just stories, nothing more. "You're not what I expected," Leora said, her voice cold but curious. "You look like a simple soldier." Alaric didn't flinch. "I am a soldier," he replied, his tone steady. "But I am also something more." Leora studied him closely, noticing the way he carried himself. There was a quiet strength in him, an aura of confidence that spoke of experience. He didn't seem nervous or afraid, despite standing before one of the most powerful rulers in the galaxy. He wasn't like the others she had met, other humans who had come to seek power, fame, or glory. This one seemed different. There was a weight to him, a history that he carried with him. The room was silent as Leora turned her gaze to her council, who watched the interaction carefully. They were skeptical, but some of them were starting to wonder if this human truly was something more than a mere soldier. "You say you're more than just a soldier," Leora continued, folding her hands behind her back. "What is it that makes you so special?" Alaric's eyes flickered for a moment, as if contemplating how much to reveal. Finally, he spoke. "I'm not just a soldier. I am the last of the ancient human warriors, the descendants of those who shaped the galaxy. The legends speak of us, though few still believe them." Leora's brow furrowed. The idea of ancient human warriors was more than just a curiosity. She had heard the stories, the humans who had once been a powerful force in the galaxy, only to fade into obscurity. But it had been centuries since any trace of those warriors had been seen. Were they really gone, or had they simply gone into hiding? "So, you're saying that you're a living legend?" Leora asked, her tone now laced with a mix of intrigue and disbelief. "I'm saying that my bloodline carries the legacy of those who fought and won battles that no one else could," Alaric replied. "Humanity has always been underestimated, but it's our ability to survive, to adapt, that has made us legends." The Queen studied him for a long moment, her mind racing with the implications of what he was saying. Was it possible that this human really was the last of his kind? Could it be that humanity, this species she had once written off as weak, was far more dangerous than she had ever imagined? For a moment, Leora felt a strange unease settle in her chest. She had lived through wars, rebellions, and countless betrayals. Yet something about this human, this soldier with a legendary past, made her wonder if the galaxy had indeed been underestimating humanity all along. "And what do you want, Alaric?" Leora asked, her voice steady but with a trace of curiosity. "What is it that brings a living legend like you to my world?" Alaric's eyes met hers without hesitation. "I've come for the same reason anyone would come to you, Queen Leora, to prove that legends are not just stories, to prove that humanity has earned its place in the galaxy." Leora's expression remained unreadable, but in her mind, she knew this human was far from ordinary. His presence here, in her court, would change everything. And with that, the game between them began. The days after Alaric's arrival passed quickly. Queen Leora had ordered the best warriors in her kingdom to prepare for a test, one that would determine if this human, this living legend, was truly worthy of the reputation that preceded him. The rumors spoke of his strength, his will to survive against all odds, but Leora needed proof. She would not trust just stories. Alaric stood at the center of the massive arena, surrounded by towering walls that echoed with the sounds of combat. The arena was a place of honor and challenge, where only the strongest survived. This would not be an easy test. Before him stood 4 of the Queen's top warriors, each one a master in their respective fighting styles. They were all trained in combat techniques that had been perfected over generations. To them, defeating the human would be nothing more than a simple task. But the Queen's command was clear: prove this human's worth. "You will face our finest warriors, Alaric," Leora said, her voice echoing from above. She watched from the elevated platform, her piercing eyes never leaving his figure. "Defeat them, and you will have proven your place here." Alaric didn't reply. He simply nodded and stepped forward. The first warrior, a tall alien with red scales and a massive sword, charged at him. The ground shook beneath his feet as the warrior swung his blade, aiming for Alaric's head. With a quick sidestep, Alaric ducked under the blade, his movements fluid and precise. He had no weapon, no armor, just his body and his instincts. In one swift motion, he grabbed the warrior's arm and twisted it, sending the giant crashing to the ground. The crowd gasped. The second warrior, a swift alien with 4 arms, attacked next. She moved with lightning speed, her 4 blades flashing through the air. Alaric's eyes never left her, his focus sharp. He was quick, but not fast enough to dodge every strike. A blade grazed his arm, leaving a thin line of blood. But he didn't flinch. Instead, he anticipated her next move, grabbing one of her blades mid-swing. With a swift kick, He knocked her off balance, sending her to the ground. The crowd cheered, but Alaric's focus remained on the final two opponents. The third warrior was a hulking figure, nearly twice the size of the human. His strength was unmatched, but Alaric was not intimidated. The alien lunged forward, swinging a massive club. Alaric rolled to the side, narrowly avoiding the blow that would have crushed him. The warrior's movements were slow, predictable. Alaric took advantage of this, ducking under the club and using his smaller size to his advantage. He struck quickly, hitting pressure points that brought the warrior to his knees. Now, only the last warrior remained. This one was different. Smaller, more agile, and incredibly fast. The alien's eyes were calculating, his every move planned. Alaric knew this would be the most difficult fight. The warrior struck first, darting in and out of Alaric's reach. His speed was overwhelming, but Alaric didn't lose his calm. He waited, biding his time, until the warrior made a critical mistake. In a blink, Alaric grabbed his opponent's arm, twisting it behind his back and forcing him to the ground. With all four warriors defeated, the arena fell silent. Alaric stood in the center, breathing heavily but still standing tall. Blood stained his clothes, but his eyes were sharp. He had proven his strength, not through brute force, but through strategy, agility, and sheer willpower. Lyra looked down from her platform, her expression unreadable. The test had been harsh, but the human had passed. She had expected him to fail. Instead, she had witnessed something remarkable, something she hadn't anticipated. "You've done well, Alaric," Leora finally said, her voice calm but tinged with something else, something close to respect. "You have proven yourself worthy of your legend." Alaric wiped the sweat from his brow, standing tall before the queen. He hadn't done this for her approval. He had done it for humanity. And now, the queen knew it. The game had changed. Days passed since Alaric's stunning victory in the arena. The human's performance had left a mark on the galaxy's strongest warriors, and whispers of his strength, strategy, and courage filled the halls of the queen's palace. Even the most skeptical leaders couldn't ignore the truth anymore. Alaric was no ordinary soldier. He had proven himself in front of the queen, the council, and all who had doubted him. Yet, despite his success, Queen Leora remained uncertain. Her mind, sharp as ever, refused to simply accept the idea that a human could possess such strength and power. She had witnessed countless warriors in her time, seen even more legends come and go. Many had claimed to be the saviors of the galaxy, but few ever lived up to their promises. Lyra couldn't afford to let herself be swayed by rumors and myths, even if they were whispered with such conviction. One evening, as the sun set behind the grand spires of the palace, Leora sat alone in her chambers, her fingers drumming lightly against the stone table. Her mind raced with questions. Was Alaric truly the human from the ancient legends, or had she been misled? Could a single human really bring change to the galaxy, or was this just another tale to tell? The door opened quietly, and one of her closest advisors, a tall, silent alien named Kren, entered. His yellow eyes were full of caution, but Leora had always trusted him. He had been by her side during the darkest of times, offering wisdom when she needed it most. "Your Majesty," Kren began, bowing slightly, "I sense your thoughts are troubled. It's about the human, isn't it?" Leora didn't answer immediately. Instead, she looked out the window at the stars. The galaxy was vast, filled with unknowns, and the idea that a human could shake the balance of it all felt unbelievable. Still, she couldn't deny the evidence before her. "I can trust him." Leora finally spoke, her voice cold. "He's too perfect, Kren. Too much like the legends. I've seen too many false prophets in my life. Every time we believe in someone like that, they let us down. What if Alaric is just another one of those stories?" Kren took a step forward, his expression gentle yet serious. "Your Majesty, I understand your doubts. But sometimes the truth is hidden in the most unexpected places. Humans are underestimated, yes, but they also possess something we do not: a relentless drive. They survive where others fall. Leora turned her gaze to Kren, her sharp eyes narrowing. And you believe he is that different? I do, Kren answered with certainty. The way he fought in the arena, it wasn't just about strength. It was about understanding the flow of battle, predicting his opponent's every move. He's more than just a soldier. He's a strategist, a leader. And I believe he's here for a reason. Leora leaned back in her chair, her fingers pressing into the stone. Kren's words were heavy with truth, but she wasn't ready to fully accept them. A part of her still clung to the fear that Alaric might be nothing more than a mirage, a fleeting illusion that would disappear when they needed him most. I cannot afford to be fooled again, Kren, she said quietly, her voice tinged with the weight of past betrayals. I've lost too much before. If he is the legend they say he is, then why hasn't he told me everything? Why all the mystery? Kren's eyes softened. Perhaps he does not yet trust you. Legends are not easily shared, Your Majesty. They are built over time, through actions and sacrifices. Leora exhaled sharply. She wasn't sure whether to trust Kren's words or her own instincts. The tension in the air between her and Alaric grew thicker by the day. She knew that soon she would have to make a choice that could either secure her reign or change the galaxy forever. The Queen's doubts were far from over. But the more she considered Kren's words, the more she realized that perhaps Alaric wasn't just a part of the story. Maybe, just maybe, he was the one who would write the next chapter. It was time to learn the truth. The sun rose over the alien city of Kalter, its golden light spilling across the towering spires of the Queen's palace. Alaric had been in the Queen's presence for days, and the whispers about his strength had begun to settle. Yet the Queen, Leora, still couldn't shake the feeling that there was something more to this human, something he had yet to reveal. Alaric had passed every test she had set before him, and with each victory, the doubts in Leora's mind grew deeper. He had faced her top warriors, outsmarting and overpowering them without hesitation. The entire galaxy had heard of his achievements, but the Queen needed more than just stories. She needed the truth. Today, she decided, would be the day she would find out. Leora summoned Alaric to her private chambers. The air was thick with tension as the two stood across from each other, the weight of the moment hanging heavy between them. The room, filled with ancient artifacts and treasures from countless worlds, felt cold despite the warmth of the day. Alaric stood with his usual calm, his eyes steady and focused. He knew why he had been called here. The Queen had questions, and he could no longer keep the answers locked inside. "You've proven yourself in battle," Leora began, her voice soft but firm. "You've shown that you are far more than just a simple soldier. But I need to know, Alaric, who are you really? Why did you come to Kalter? And what is it that you're hiding?" The silence stretched between them. Alaric's gaze shifted slightly, but his expression remained unreadable. He knew this moment had come, the moment when the weight of his past would be revealed. "You're right," he said, breaking the silence. "I am not just a soldier. I'm the last of a line of warriors, the last of humanity's ancient heroes." Leora's eyes narrowed, not in disbelief, but in the realization that this was more than just a tale. Alaric's voice was steady, but there was a deep sadness behind it. "The legends are true," he continued, "but they're not just stories. They are the truth of who we were. My ancestors fought alongside the great civilizations of the galaxy, shaping it, defending it. But over time, humanity's role faded. We were scattered, lost in the endless stars. And now, I'm the only one left." Leora took a step forward, intrigued. "Why did humanity fade away? Why is it that I only hear whispers of you now?" Alaric's eyes grew distant, as if remembering a time long past. War, betrayal, and loss. Our people were betrayed by those we thought we could trust. Empires fell, and with them, the human warriors who once fought for a galaxy at peace. One by one, they were erased from history. My family was one of the last to survive, but we could never stop running, never stop hiding from those who feared what we could do. Lyra's mind raced as she processed his words. The idea that humanity had once been a powerful force, an unstoppable presence, seemed impossible to imagine. Yet, looking at Alaric, she could see the weight of that history in his eyes. "Why have you come now?" she asked, her voice softer now, filled with genuine curiosity. "Why, after all these years, have you returned to the galaxy's stage?" Alaric met her gaze, the weight of his decision clear. "I came because the time is right. The galaxy is on the brink of war, and humanity, what's left of us, can no longer hide. We have the strength to change things, to turn the tide in a way no one expects. I didn't come here for glory, Queen Lyra. I came because I believe that together we can stop the destruction that threatens us all." The Queen stood still, her heart racing with the implications of his words. The weight of the galaxy's future now seemed to rest on the shoulders of this human who had once been a legend and who now might become the savior the galaxy needed. But Lyra knew there was more at play here. Alaric's history was tangled with secrets, and she had only just begun to uncover them. "You've shown me your strength, Alaric," Lyra said, her voice filled with a new respect. "But your true challenge has only just begun." Alaric nodded, his expression unwavering. "I know, Your Majesty, but I'm ready." And in that moment, the Queen knew that Alaric was no mere soldier. He was the embodiment of the legends she had once thought were only stories, and together, they would shape the future of the galaxy. The air in the Queen's chambers was heavy with anticipation as Lyra and Alaric stood facing each other. The truth had been revealed, and while it had not come as a surprise, it had shifted something inside the Queen. Alaric, the human soldier, wasn't just some myth or legend. He was real. The weight of his history, his bloodline, now sat between them. Lyra was not a woman who often dealt with emotions, but something about Alaric had sparked a curiosity in her, a curiosity she couldn't ignore. Alaric, too, seemed changed. The burden of his past had always weighed heavily on him, but now, as he stood before the Queen, the weight seemed a little lighter. He had told her the truth, and while it had cost him, it felt like a necessary step. But there was something more, something else he had not yet shared. "I didn't come here just to tell you my story," Alaric said, breaking the silence between them. His voice was calm, but there was a fire behind it. "I came because I need your help." Lyra raised an eyebrow, surprised by the directness of his words. Her eyes studied him carefully. "Help? From me?" Alaric nodded. "From you, and from the galaxy as a whole." The Queen's mind raced. She had already seen what Alaric was capable of, but she had also seen the stakes. The galaxy was on the edge of war, and the powers that controlled it were only growing more aggressive. She had no doubt that Alaric was right about the danger they faced, but she wasn't sure if she was ready to trust him completely. "What kind of help are you asking for?" Lyra finally asked. Her voice was steady, but her gaze never left Alaric's face. "I need you to trust me," he said, his eyes intense. "We've both been fighting our battles alone for too long. The galaxy is shifting, and it's only a matter of time before the power dynamics change in a way that no one expects. But together, we could stop it. Together, we could lead the fight." Lyra's heart beat faster as she processed his words. For a moment, she thought she saw something different in Alaric. It wasn't just a man seeking power. It was someone who truly believed in the cause he was speaking of. She had seen countless leaders and conquerors in her time, but few had spoken with such conviction, especially not a human. "I don't need your trust, Alaric," Lyra said after a long pause. "I need to know why you think we can change the tide of this war. Why should I risk everything on a human with no army? No allies? You're not even from this part of the galaxy." Alaric's eyes softened, and for the first time since their meeting, he took a step toward her, lowering his voice. "Because I'm not just a human. I'm the last of my people, the last of those who fought for something bigger than ourselves. And the reason I need you is because you and I have the same goal: survival. You've been fighting the same war, Leora, we may be from different places, but we both know the cost of losing everything. I'm not asking you to risk everything. I'm asking you to join me in a fight for the future." The Queen's thoughts whirled. Alaric's words had hit a nerve, something deep inside her that she had long buried beneath layers of armor. She was used to power. She was used to control. But the idea of joining forces with a human, someone from a species so young and untested, was still hard to grasp. "Do you really think you can convince the others?" Leora asked, her voice laced with doubt. "The Council will never agree to such an alliance." "They don't have to," Alaric said, his voice growing stronger. "The galaxy's leaders have been playing their games for too long. They think they're in control, but they're not. You know as well as I do that everything can change in an instant. The Council can choose to follow, or they can be left behind." Leora stared at him, her mind racing. Could this human really change the galaxy? Could he truly be the key to ending the war and bringing about a new order? Her instincts told her to be cautious, but for the first time in years, she felt a spark of hope. "If I agree," Leora said, her voice steady, "then we will need to act quickly. We'll need to rally the factions, make sure we have the resources we need, and most importantly, we need to be prepared for the consequences. This won't be easy." Alaric nodded, his expression serious. "I understand, but I'm ready for whatever comes, and I believe you are too." For a moment, Leora simply looked at him. She had never expected to find an ally in a human, especially not one so deeply tied to the past. But there was something in his eyes, a quiet strength that spoke of determination and resilience. With a deep breath, Leora finally spoke the words that would change everything. "Then, let's do it," she said. "Let's change the galaxy." And just like that, the alliance was forged. The alliance between Queen Leora and Alaric had been forged, but it was only the beginning. Their next step was to rally the galaxy's factions, gathering the support needed to confront the growing threat. Leora, once confident in her solitary rule, now had to trust Alaric, a human with a past that seemed too incredible to be true. But there was no turning back. In the days that followed, they met with leaders from across the galaxy, negotiating deals and offering alliances. Alaric, despite being human, spoke with a passion and authority that many found impossible to ignore. His knowledge of ancient tactics, his strategic mind, and the weight of his legacy were all working in his favor. Yet beneath their shared goal, something else was growing. An unspoken bond, one neither of them had expected. Leora couldn't deny the shift in their relationship. When they first met, she saw him as a tool, someone to be used for the mission, nothing more. But now, as they spent more time together, she began to see him differently. Alaric's calm strength, his ability to stay focused even in the most chaotic situations, was something she couldn't ignore. More than that, she admired his dedication to humanity, to his people, and to the future of the galaxy. Yet it unsettled her. Leora had never allowed herself to grow too close to anyone. Trust was a fragile thing, and she had learned long ago that it could be shattered in an instant. But Alaric was unlike anyone she had ever known. There was no false bravado in him, no pretenses. He was real, and he made her feel something she hadn't in years, a strange mixture of respect and something else that she couldn't name. One evening, as the two of them stood overlooking the palace gardens, the weight of their situation hung heavily in the air. They had just finished discussing their plans with the council, and the next step was a risky one. It would test their ability to lead, to bring their forces together, but they both knew the importance of the upcoming battle. The stakes couldn't be higher. "You've done more than I expected, Alaric," Leora said, her voice quiet but sincere. "The way you've convinced the others. I never imagined a human could have that kind of influence." Alaric looked at her, his dark eyes steady. "I've had nothing but time to learn, Your Majesty. It's not about influence. It's about showing them that there's more to us than they think, more to humanity than they could ever imagine." Leora turned to face him, her heart unexpectedly quickening. "And what about you, Alaric?" she asked. "What do you want from all of this? We've fought together, planned together. But I need to know if you're truly committed, because I know how easily things can go wrong." Alaric took a deep breath, his gaze fixed on her. "I'm committed to this cause, Leora, but it's not just about the war. It's about something deeper, something I thought I'd never find again. Hope. I know the cost of failure. But if we succeed, if we can change this galaxy, then all of this, everything, will be worth it." The quiet between them stretched, each of them processing the gravity of the words spoken. Leora's heart skipped a beat, her mind racing. She had always kept her emotions in check, never allowing herself to get too close to anyone. But now, as she stood before Alaric, she felt a pull, something that made her question everything she thought she knew about herself. She knew she should step back, keep things professional, as they had been before. But the truth was, she didn't want to. "You're more than just a soldier," Leora said softly. "You've become something more to me, Alaric. I didn't expect that. I didn't plan for it." His expression softened, and for the first time since they had met, he stepped closer. "You don't have to plan for it, Leora. It's not something either of us can control." Her breath caught in her throat. This wasn't part of the plan. She had told herself that emotions had no place in a war, that alliances were forged for survival, not for personal feelings. Yet here she was, on the verge of crossing a line she had sworn never to cross. A line that, if crossed, could jeopardize everything. But in that moment, with the weight of the galaxy on their shoulders, Leora couldn't bring herself to pull away. She had trusted him with her plans, with her secrets. She had trusted him with her kingdom. And now, she realized, she was trusting him with something even more dangerous, her heart. The bond between them was forbidden. It could never be, not in a world as ruthless as theirs. Yet neither of them could deny it. And as they stood there, facing the uncertain future together, they both knew that no matter what happened, nothing would ever be the same again. The alliance had barely begun to take shape, and already, Leora could feel the pressure mounting. The galaxy's factions were reluctant, and some of the old powers were beginning to question the newly formed alliance. There were whispers of doubt, growing louder each day, as the council debated their next steps. But for every challenge they faced, Alaric's presence gave her strength. Together, they had made promises to reshape the galaxy, to bring an end to the endless cycle of war. But not all promises are meant to be kept. It was late one evening when the betrayal came. Leora had just finished a strategy meeting with Alaric and her closest advisors. The plan was simple: rally the outer planets, establish a united front, and prepare for a confrontation with the factions still loyal to the old regime. The war was growing closer, and they needed to act fast. Alaric was confident. Leora was resolute. But they didn't realize that someone in their own ranks was plotting against them. As the night fell over the palace, the air was thick with tension. Leora made her way to her private quarters, her mind still running over the details of the plan. She was not one for distractions, but tonight she felt an uneasy silence that pressed against her chest. Her thoughts were interrupted by a sharp knock on the door. "Come in," she called, her voice steady. The door opened slowly, revealing Kren, her most trusted advisor. His expression was strained, his usual calm replaced by something darker. "Your Majesty," Kren said, his voice low. "There's something you need to know." Leora's heart skipped a beat. The way Kren spoke made her feel like something was terribly wrong. She motioned for him to continue. "There's been a leak," Kren said. "Someone in your inner circle has betrayed us. They've been feeding information to the enemy." The words hit Leora like a physical blow. "What do you mean? Who?" Kren hesitated, then stepped forward, lowering his voice. "It's Jarek. He's been working with the Galak Alliance. He's been passing secrets, plans, everything. And now, the Galak forces are preparing to strike." Leora stood frozen, her mind struggling to process the shock. Jarek had been a trusted member of her council, someone she had relied on for crucial decisions. She couldn't believe it. The betrayal ran deeper than she had ever feared. How could he do this? Lyora whispered, her voice breaking. She quickly regained her composure, though the hurt was evident in her eyes. I don't know, Kren said, his face grim. But we must act quickly. If we don't stop him now, it could be too late. Lyora's mind raced. She knew the Gallic Alliance was one of the most powerful enemies in the galaxy, and they had just been handed an advantage by someone inside her own palace. Her pulse quickened. She couldn't allow this to go any further. Not now. Not when they were so close to victory. Gather the guards, Lyora said, her voice steady once more. We need to confront Jarek before the enemy attacks. This betrayal will end tonight. Kren nodded and quickly left the room, leaving Lyora alone with her thoughts. She had trusted Jarek, and now that trust had been shattered. She couldn't allow weakness to show. There was no room for mercy in a galaxy this dangerous. But as she walked to her command center, a deep anger burned in her chest. She had always known that betrayal was a possibility. In the world of power and war, loyalty was never certain. But this was personal. When Alaric found out about the betrayal, he was furious. We'll stop them, he said, his voice dark with resolve. This won't go unpunished. But Lyora knew that the consequences of this betrayal went beyond just Jarek. It threatened everything they had worked for. The trust between them, fragile as it was, had now been tested. She couldn't afford to let it break. They had to stay focused. They had to stay united. With the betrayal now exposed, the galaxy's fragile peace seemed further out of reach than ever. But Lyora was determined. She would hunt down the traitors, one by one, and ensure that no more could undermine their fight for survival. The path ahead would be harder than she had imagined, but as long as Alaric stood beside her, she knew they would face whatever came next, together. The betrayal had been uncovered, but the real test had just begun. Lyora and Alaric stood together in the heart of the war room, surrounded by maps, reports, and the faint hum of anticipation. The galaxy was on the brink of total chaos, and now, with the enemy forces preparing for their next strike, they had little time to waste. The betrayal by Jarek had put them in a dangerous position, but they couldn't afford to dwell on it any longer. The future of the galaxy depended on their next move. Lyora leaned over the map, tracing her finger over the path the enemy was expected to take. The Gallic forces were marching towards the outer rim planets, planning to strike at the heart of their alliance. They were outnumbered, and every corner of the galaxy seemed to be closing in on them. Alaric, Lyora said, her voice firm. We don't have the resources to stop them head-on. Our only choice is to cut them off at the source. Alaric nodded, his gaze never leaving the map. The Gallic forces have spread themselves thin, but their leadership is concentrated in one location. If we can take out their command center, we cripple their entire operation. We need to move fast and strike hard. Lyora studied him for a long moment, her mind racing with the gravity of their plan. This could be our only chance. If we fail. We won't fail, Alaric interrupted, his voice filled with quiet determination. We've fought too hard for this, and we've come too far. His confidence was contagious, but Lyora couldn't shake the feeling of dread in her chest. They were about to step into enemy territory, a place where danger lurked at every turn. They couldn't afford to hesitate. Not now. All right, Lyora said, her voice cold and resolute. We move tonight. We'll strike under the cover of darkness. Assemble the forces. As the plan took shape, Lyora could feel the weight of the upcoming battle. Her mind wandered back to the moments when she had first met Alaric, unsure of him, skeptical of his abilities. Now he was her most trusted ally. They had fought side by side, faced impossible odds, and in some ways had become more than just leaders. They were partners, bound by a common cause. And yet, despite everything they had shared, Lyora knew the truth. They were both risking everything in this final push. The success of their mission would mean victory for the galaxy, but failure would mean the end. The hours passed quickly, and soon the time had come. Lyora and Alaric stood together on the bridge of their ship, watching as their fleet prepared for the journey. The vastness of space stretched out before them, the stars blinking like distant promises. Their forces were ready. They had no more time for doubts. "We can't go back now," Lyora said, her voice steady. "We never intended to," Alaric replied, his eyes sharp. "We fight for the future." Lyora nodded, turning to face the crew behind her. "Prepare for departure. We strike tonight." The ship hummed to life as the fleet lifted off, heading into the darkness of space. The enemy had no idea they were coming. The element of surprise would be their greatest weapon. As they approached the Gallic Command Center, Lyora felt the weight of the battle ahead. Every decision, every risk, had led them here. They were outnumbered, but they had something more than the Gallic forces, something more powerful than any fleet or army. They had the strength of their will, the fire of their belief in something greater than themselves. The command center loomed ahead, surrounded by enemy ships, but Lyora and Alaric's fleet was moving quickly, cutting through the darkness like a knife. The final confrontation was near. "This is it," Alaric said quietly, his voice full of resolve. "We've come too far to stop now." Lyora nodded, a rare smile tugging at her lips. No turning back. Together, they led their forces into battle. The stars ahead seemed to shimmer with a promise. The promise of a future, of victory, of a galaxy finally free from the grip of those who sought to destroy it. The final confrontation had begun, and neither Lyora nor Alaric would rest until the galaxy was theirs to protect.